I'm Rogue Link, and this is Minit Normal 110%. So one thing I like to preface all my Minit runs with is there's two buttons in this game. There's X, which uses your currently equipped item, and then there's C, which immediately kills you and resets. We're going to be using this a lot in order to death warp and save a lot of backtracking. And since this is literally one of the first things that we do, I like to explain it before the start of the run. And without further ado, let's go. So we're picking up the sword and resetting, just as I was saying, in order to slightly cut down on the travel time over to this next item. The sword is actually cursed, and the entire game we're trying to get rid of it. Picking up the watering can, which is our first key item, and then grabbing this coin from the dog. Since this is 110%, we need to get all of the optional collectible items as well. Next up, we're going to head into this hidden area over to the left. Usually you would actually have the flashlight during this. But since this is a speed run, we actually don't pick up the flashlight till much later, when it's slightly more optimal to do so. Heading back into this dark room, needed a bit of an audio cue there. And there's a few more collectibles. One such collectible is hearts. So the first time you kill that bull, it drops its heart, which gives us now 3 health. Grabbing this checkpoint real quick, so that we're able to warp here on our next death, and then setting up for yet another coin. This is easily one of the more well-hidden coins. There's a hint system in-game with some ghosts, but that one can still be pretty hard to figure out. Now that we've changed our checkpoint, we warp there, grab the watering can, and head into the secret temple. This room can actually be kind of tricky because we actually have to get through here without taking any damage. There we go. And grabbing another coin in the dark. Now the reason that we're getting all of these coins up front is there's an item that you can get in the desert called the sprint shoes. You need 7 coins for that. But it unlocks the ability for our character to dash after a set amount of time, which is one of the more important key items for movement in this game. And cuts down quite a bit of time getting it early. Breaking a hidden wall, head through here, and then getting yet another hidden coin in this garbage dumpster, and picking up those shoes. Now that we have the shoes, we're going to do a lot of running in this area. First things first, we're going to pick up this watering can and use approximately a drop of water to save that man lost in the desert. And then we're going to head to the left here, pick up a tentacle, which is another type of collectible in this game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by going back and forth between those two games, we trick the game into thinking that we're much deeper in the desert than we actually are. Bringing us to this ghost, and allowing us to get the sword thrower. But before we leave, taking a death in that very special dark room. Now that dark room we actually need to die in from every checkpoint, so that's the first of many. And the sword thrower giving us a range attack. Next key item that we pick up, the gardening glove, that allows us to destroy stumps such as this one right here, and is very important for picking up multiple key items over the course of this run. Heading back home, resetting our checkpoint, and killing a couple crabs. The crabs are actually used for the next key item that we're going to be getting in the game, which is called coffee. And that coffee is going to allow us to push blocks, which is very important, and is so important, it's actually one of the few items that we pick up in an any percent run. Using the coffee to push that block, we're going to get the lighthouse key. Now, we're not going to head over to the lighthouse quite yet. There's one thing we need to pick up, thanks to the gardening glove, and that's this boat wood. Using the boat wood, we're able to hand it in to the friend that we saved in the middle of the desert. And then we're going to head over to the lighthouse and get the flashlight. As I was saying earlier, you're actually supposed to get the flashlight pretty early, but we're able to get through the dark rooms in the speedrun and pick up the flashlight at a much more optimal time. Next up, a nice, chill, relaxing boat ride. The one thing that we need to do on the way there is actually pick up this tentacle, but otherwise it's a pretty quick, relaxing trip. The island having some of my favorite music in this game. This whole soundtrack is fantastic, but this track in particular is just very relaxing. Before we head into that hut right there, which is another checkpoint, we're actually going to grab this basement key, which allows us access to another part of the island. Taking a reset to get our time back. Heading to the left to get the first of 3 switches. Then heading down. We didn't quite push it far enough. Oh, that's unfortunate. And heading down to get the second of 3 switches. The third of which being in the basement here. Through this warp maze, but it's pretty easy. Just 1, 2, 3 to the right. And we're good. Now, by doing that, we've actually unlocked the teleporter, and it takes us back home by default. There's actually 2 other teleport spots that we can unlock, which will be very useful. That will come up a little later. Using our sword thrower range attack, we're able to kill those 2, spawn that bridge, and pick up this press pass. Now, the press pass is actually an item that's exclusive to speedrun mode on PC or to console. Usually the PC gets the camera, which is actually a really neat item that allows you to take pictures and save them onto your machine. But since the press pass is faster, the devs were kind enough to give us the press pass in speedrun mode so that we can keep things consistent between the different versions. Next up, we have to find a series of hotel guests. The first one was that diver, who only shows up if your timer is at less than 10 seconds. Next up, we kill all the bandits to save that hotel guest, who is with the wrong crowd. Next up, we help this friend find his credit card, which is fortunately always in the same spot. So with pixel-perfect precision, we need to put the box right there. Head through this secret wall and get another heart. Next up, we're going to do a minor glitch to trick this hotel guest into thinking all the trees are destroyed by staying real far away and picking them up just a little early. Next up is one of the dark rooms that you have to go through in any percent. And this room can be pretty tough, but fortunately, since we have the flashlight in this category, it's pretty easy and we can just head right on through. There we go, getting the switches, and once the bridge is down, we can grab that hotel guest, pick up the last guest under that box, head up the ladder that's now dropped, and pick up the flippers. The flippers being very important, and the main reason that we picked up all the hotel guests. Next up, we need to wait in line for what feels like an eternity. I'd like to take this moment to relax, stretch, have a good time, all that kind of stuff. It's one of the few breaks that we have in this run. This right here and heading to the island. There we go. Next up, heading deeper into the factory. Getting another tentacle on the way. Destroying this generator, which gets rid of the electrical burst, giving us access to this lower area, where we can use this drill to not only unlock a coin, but it also gives us a very, very convenient shortcut to the desert, which is going to be incredibly useful later. And while we're here, we're going to unlock the desert side of the teleporter, and then get another death in this super special room. Whoops. That was an incident. Next up, a real big collecting section. So we're going to be getting a couple coins, a couple tentacles. First coin right here on this little peninsula. And this entire area is actually shark-infested waters, but that turtle right there actually tells us the correct way to go in order to find this super secret island, which has both a tentacle and a coin. Excuse me. Next up, we're going to do a slight clip, which allows us to get through that pot without destroying it, saving a fairly significant amount of time. And we're going to destroy all of these bats to give us access to this upper area where there's not one, but 2 coins for us. Next up, one more thing we need to do in these sewers. We're going to head down and over to the left here and be very careful with this shark. So the shark, ooh, unfortunately we got caught there. So the shark is always patrolling this area in a circle, so you have to be real careful. Fortunately, we didn't get the pot clip a second time. Heading up through here. Real careful with the shark. Very close, always close. Heading down through here. And then grabbing the tentacle. Next up, we need to head south. Back to the island. 1, 2, 3, but down this time to grab the tentacle hidden on the island now that we have the coffee and can push things. Heading back to the desert to pick up the turbo ink. Now the turbo ink is the item that you get for collecting all 8 of the tentacles. And it's got 2 purposes for us. One, it increases your attack speed. But really important to the speedrun is it has the side effect of allowing us to dash immediately after swinging our sword, giving us a fairly significant speed boost. Next, heading to this hidden room back here, and then destroying some bandits. These bandits actually are holding another coin from us. We don't get it until we destroy them 3 times. But the real thing that we're going for on this particular run is this bone, which is used for one of my favorite hearts in this game. We bring it all the way back home, give it to our dog friend for a heart. Next up, we need to kill the bandits 2 more times. The trick is doing this optimally, so you really want to try to hit multiple bandits at the same time, like so. Killing 2 at the same time is very, very good, and you want to make sure none of your hits miss. So that was pretty good fights. Next up, one of the longest runs in 110%. We're going to be doing quite a few things here. First thing we need to do is destroy this conveyor belt by pushing these boxes into those gears. on the third box, this conveyor belt is actually going to be destroyed forever. We're going to head through here using holding down right to ignore the conveyor belt speed, making sure to go back just a little bit to get the early switches, heading around, going into the truck, and picking up a coin. Next up, we're going to be getting some super secret items. First, we're going to be using these boxes again, but instead pushing them to the right this time. There we go. Now, you may notice this box looks a little bit different, and that's because it gives us a special item, the grinder, once we destroy it. And the grinder allows us to destroy boxes such as this one, which not only gets us a coin, but also allows us access to this hidden area right here. Resetting so that we get our time back in the tent. We're going to be heading through this pipe maze, which fortunately we know our way through this maze pretty easily, and we're actually able to maintain our dash through almost this whole thing by simply pushing 2 directions at the same time. And in this next room, we're looking for the trophy with no sparkles. There it is. And that takes us back home. Now, a few more items we need to collect in here. First of all, there's this waterfall coin. And this plant. So you may notice that every time we water this plant, it gets a little bit bigger. Until the third and final time that we water it, we get a heart. Next up, head back to the desert for the 4th and final death in the secret temple. Heading back into that room to get the coin. Certainly one of the harder rooms to figure out. I certainly had to look it up myself when I was doing this casual playthrough. And then one really long run through this bottom section. We're going to have barely enough time to get through this. Similar to the pipes, just making sure to hold 2 directions at the same time. It's pretty easy to get around all of these corners without losing your speed. And if you do lose the speed, just swing your sword again and you're able to start dashing right away. It's gonna be close. Fantastic. And now we have all of the coins, and we're able to get the final heart at a cost of 19 coins. And now it's just a matter of wrapping it up. So we want to get the reset on that particular building, so we can use that shortcut we opened up early on to head into the factory and throw our sword into that cog. Now, for a very interesting puzzle of we have to get back there without using our sword. Fortunately, it's pretty easy since we have that real big checkpoint from the real big shortcut from the drill. 3. And now it's time for the final boss. Now we want to take a little bit of damage here because we currently cannot reset in this room. So we want to make sure as soon as we're done with this phase specifically that we're able to die right away and get our time back. So unfortunately, we're losing a couple seconds here. And now for the final phase of the boss, we have to get through all of these giant swords so that we can attack him directly. Unfortunately, missed one there, swung through my sword a little early. There we go. Now, ideally, you want to get the sword to hit as soon as you can. There we go. Fantastic. And that's Minit hitting the broken sword. The boss is destroyed. The sword gets flushed. And there's a happy ending for everybody. 1823 in game time, which is what we use on the leaderboard. Not too bad. Thanks for watching. This has been Minit Normal Mode, 110%.